Hello friends, this video on active and passive voice part 3 is brought to you by examfear.com. No more fear from exam. So now that we have understood active and passive voice, and we have also understood how do we recognize in a sentence whether it is the verb is in the active voice form or in the passive voice form, now is the time that we should learn how do we convert a sentence from active voice to passive voice. So to convert a sentence from active voice to passive voice, we just need to remember 3 simple steps. Now please understand these 3 steps very, very carefully. So our step 1 would be to interchange the subject and the object. So that is why whenever you are given a sentence, first of all, try to figure out which is the subject and which is the object. So once you are able to do that, interchange them if you want to convert the sentence into passive voice. So that is going to be your step 1. Step 2 would be to change the tense of the verb. Now the verb also needs to change. For example, when I say that he eats apple, that is active voice, right? Now in the passive voice, what do we say? Apple is eaten by him, right? So in active voice, we say he eats apple. And what do we say in the passive voice? We say apple is eaten by him, right? So do you see the change in the form of the verb? So in the active voice it is eats, but in the passive voice you have is eaten. So basically the tense of the verb has also changed. So your step 2 would be to change the tense of the verb. And step 3 would be to include by before the doer of the action. So in this case, he is the doer of the action. So in the passive voice, before him, you need to put by. So you need to insert by before the doer of the action. So these are the 3 simple steps that you need to remember to convert a sentence from active voice to passive voice. Now let us take an example. The man cut down the tree. So in this case, the man is the subject and the tree is the object. So as per the steps which are given to us, what is our step 1? Interchange the subject and the object. So what we did, we have put object at the first and the subject at the last. So we have interchanged the subject and the object. Now the more tricky part would be in step 2. Because in step 2, we need to change the tense of the verb. So here the problem is that how do we know that what should be the tense of the verb? So whether it should be is cut, or it should be was cut, or it should be are cut, what it should be. So that is the biggest challenge that we have. So step 2 is the most trickiest part as far as conversion of active to passive is concerned. And step 3 again is simple, because in step 3 we just need to insert by before the doer of the action. So here the doer of the action is the man, so we just need to insert by here. So step 1 and step 3 are simple, but step 2 is tricky. So let us spend some more time to understand how do we handle step 2. That is, how do we change the tense of the verb when we are converting from active to passive. So let us first talk about the present tense. So we will only talk about the present tense to start with. Now this table is going to help us a lot when we convert sentences in active voice to passive voice. Now first of all, you need to determine the tense in the given sentence. For example, you are given a sentence, he eats spicy food. So this is an active voice because he is the subject and he is also the doer of the action. And here the action is eating. So he is eating the spicy food. So the subject does something. So therefore this is active voice. Now here he is the subject and spicy food is the object. So this is the subject, this is the object. So as far as we have learnt in the previous slide, our first step would be to interchange the subject and the object. So let us do that. So first we interchange. So we bring spicy food first, that is, we bring it in the place of the subject, and we take the subject at the end. So the subject is he. So for now, let us write it as he. Now is the turn to change the tense. So that is, we have to change this tense eats. So how do we change that? So first of all, we have to determine the tense in this sentence. So here, eats is in simple present tense. Now, as far as tenses are concerned, broadly there are three types of tenses: present, past and future. Now, in present tense, again, we have simple present, present continuous and present perfect. Now, I am not going to talk about all of these now because we will have a separate video for tenses. So there you can learn in detail about the tenses. So right now here in this sentence, eats is simple present. So whenever the tense is in simple present, if in active voice you have eats or eat, now with he it will be eats, but had it been they, so it would have been eat. So they eat spicy food, he eats spicy food, right? So how do you convert that eat? So this eats in the passive voice becomes is eaten or are eaten. Now here spicy food is a singular thing. So we will write spicy food is eaten. So the eats will get converted to is eaten. So you have eats in the active voice. So this gets converted to is eaten in the passive voice. Right? So spicy food is eaten. And what is our step 3? Insert by before the doer of the action. So doer of the action is he. So before he, you will include by. Now let us read out the full sentence. It is spicy food is eaten by he. So is it correct? So by he is not correct. It should be by him. So the form of he would change and it will become him. So this is the correct sentence now. Spicy food is eaten by him. So this is your passive voice. So in this fashion, in by the three-step process, you will be able to convert a sentence from active voice to passive voice. Now let us take more examples. Now before that, let us look at this table. So whenever in the active voice it is in simple present tense, eat or eats will get converted to is eaten or are eaten. If it is present continuous tense, that means something like this: I am eating an apple. That means I am right now eating that apple. So it is continuous. It is present tense and it is also continuous. It is happening right now. It is continuing to happen. So that is present continuous. So in this case, again, let's try to convert it. So our first step is to interchange the subject and the object. So subject here is I and object is apple. So we can write it as an apple and let's put I at the end. Okay. Now I am eating. So this is the verb that we have. Right? I am eating. So how do we convert it? So this is present continuous. You have am eating. So this will get converted to is being eaten or are being eaten. So basically what is happening is, like if you see that it was eats. So eats got converted to eaten. Why? In the past participle form. That is eat, eat, eaten. Right? So it has got converted to the past participle form. So in this case, this will be an apple. Apple is singular. So this would be, so this is. So an apple is being eaten. So this would be, so am eating will get converted to is being eaten. And then the third step is to include by before the doer. Now read it out. An apple is being eaten by I. Is that correct? No, it should be by me. So an apple is being eaten by me. In case this would have been apples. So in that case, it would have been apples are being eaten by me because apples is plural. So you will have are here. Right? Now let us take an example of present perfect tense. Like they have eaten breakfast. So this is present perfect. So whenever you have has, have, eaten, so that's present perfect. So they have eaten breakfast. That means they have just now finished off their breakfast. So in this case, again, your first step would be to interchange the subject and the object. So object here is breakfast and subject is they. Now, have eaten. How do you convert have eaten? Have eaten will become have been eaten. So one extra been will get added. So breakfast have been eaten by they. So it will not be they, by them. So breakfast have been eaten. So can you find out the mistake in the last sentence? So even though we have converted have eaten to have been eaten, but here you have breakfast. Here it was they. So they was plural, so you had have. But here you are talking about breakfast, so it should be has. So it should be breakfast has been eaten by them. So you see, you have to go step by step. So when you are converting from active to passive, first step is interchange subject and object. Second step is to change the tense of the verb. So how do you change the tense of the verb? By remembering this table. So you see, it's very easy to remember the table. So if you are dealing with present tense, right? So the first thing that you need to remember is whatever verb you have, whether it is eat or play or sing or cook or anything, any verb that you have, in the passive voice, your verb would always be the past participle form. Like it will never be eat or eats or eating. So they will not be there in the passive form. In the passive form, you will always have the past participle form, like the eaten, like eaten or taken or. So some of the examples of verbs in the past participle form in passive form would be eaten, taken, broken, cut, because for cut it is cut, 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 built. So in the present form, the first form it would be build, then it would be built and built. So basically the verbs in the passive form would always be in the past participle form. Now depending on if it is simple present, then that past participle verb before that you will have is or are, depending on whether you have a singular or plural object. In the present continuous form, you will have is or are being, depending on again whether it is is or are, that depends on whether the object is singular or plural. Again, in present perfect, you will have has been or have been, again depending on whether the object is singular or plural. So if the object is singular, it will be has been. If the object is plural, it would be have been. Right? So basically you just need to remember these three things. So if you are able to grasp these three things, like if you are able to grasp or understand this table, you are done with your active and passive voice. Because if you remember this, it is very easy to remember the past tense and the future tense. So just focus on the present tense. Okay, so now let us move on to the past tense. So in past tense also we have made a similar table for simple past, past continuous and past perfect. But this time it is easier for you because it is exactly the same way as it was for present tense. For example, in simple past you have ate, right? Like eat, ate, eaten. Right? So here you have simple past is ate. So what would be it in the passive form? In passive form, you will always have the third form of the verb, like eat, ate, eaten. So that eaten will always be there in the passive form. And since it is past tense, so instead of is or are, you will have was or were. Now just compare the past tense table with the present tense table. So you see here it was is, are eaten. So is, are gets replaced with was, were. Similarly in past continuous, it is was, were being eaten. So again is, are is getting replaced with was, were. Otherwise it is the same. Again in past perfect, you see it is had been eaten. So in present it was has or have been eaten. So that has or have is replaced with had been eaten. So the concept is exactly the same. It is just that is replaced with was, are replaced with were, and has or have replaced with had. That is the only difference. Otherwise it is all the same. Right? Now let us look at some examples. Let us take an example of a simple past tense, like she ate an apple. So here, what is the subject? She. What is the object? Apple. So first of all, we will interchange the subject and the object. That is, apple would be here and she would be at the end. Right? So an apple ate. Ate will change to was eaten. So an apple was eaten by she? No, by her. Apple was eaten by her. Now let's take an example of past continuous. They were eating apples. So in this case, again, first you interchange the subject and the object. So bring apples at the first and take they at the end. So they will basically become them, because when you insert by here, so it would be by them. Okay, so here were eating. So were eating will change into were being eaten. So apples were being eaten by them. And last example is for past perfect. Rama had eaten an apple. So again, bring an apple at the first, take Rama at the back. So insert by. So an apple had eaten. So had eaten will be converted to had been eaten. So an apple had been eaten by Rama. So in this fashion, we convert active to passive. So you see, it's easy. You do not, now please do not think that you need to memorize this table. Not at all. Just practice the first table, the present tense wala table. And once you are very much comfortable with the present tense, past tense, it's nothing. Just that is replace it with was. Again, are replace it with were. Has, replace it with had. That's it. Otherwise, it is all the same.
Thank you. Please visit examfear.com for free quality education. You can learn with a simple 4-step learning process wherein you can watch video lessons, you can ask your questions, you can refer notes, and you can take a free online test. We have content for class 6 to 12 on physics, chemistry, mathematics, and biology along with practical videos. So please subscribe to our channel for daily updates. Thank you.